Hi there. Tonight we're stepping into a world where breakfast doesn't exist yet. Coffee is about 4,000 years away, and your career path involves staring at animals in Destinies to predict whether the kingdom will survive the week. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Dim the lights if you can, maybe light a candle, pour yourself some water, and if you're enjoying this journey into the ancient world, consider leaving your city and the time you're watching in the comments. I love knowing who else is awake at these quiet hours, wondering what it was like when people believed the gods wrote messages in livers. Now then, you wake up in Mesopotamia, sometime around 2000 BCE. The year doesn't matter much to you because calendars aren't exactly dinner table conversation yet. What matters is this: you're an apprentice to the Baru, the diviner priest, and today is the day you learn whether you have what it takes to read the future. Your bed is a woven mat on a mud brick platform. It's not uncomfortable, exactly. It's just that every morning you wake up with the pattern of the weave imprinted on your cheek. The room smells like clay and old incense, a combination that you've come to associate with both safety and a low-level sense of dread. You can hear the city waking up outside, the bleat of goats, the murmur of merchants setting up in the market, the distant sound of someone yelling at someone else about the price of barley. You sit up. Your tunic is simple, undyed linen that scratches against your skin in a way you've learned to ignore. Beside you is a small clay lamp, still flickering from the night before. The flame dances, casting shadows that seem to move with purpose, as if they're practicing omens of their own. The air is already warm. It's always warm here in the land between the rivers. The Tigris and Euphrates aren't just sources of water, they're lifelines, temperamental gods in liquid form that can give life one season and take it away the next. You've heard the stories, everyone has. The Great Flood, when the gods decided humanity was too loud, too chaotic, too much. They wiped the world clean once before. The question that sits at the back of every Mesopotamian mind is simple. Will they do it again? That's where you come in. Or at least that's where you're supposed to come in. Right now, you're just trying not to trip over your own feet as you make your way to the temple courtyard. Your teacher, the Baru, is already there. He's older, with a face that looks like it's been carved from the same stone as the ziggurats. His eyes are sharp and he misses nothing. You've seen him examine a sheep's liver for 10 minutes without blinking, tracing the grooves and nodules as if he's reading a letter from the gods themselves. Which in a way he is. You're late, he says, though the sun has barely crested the horizon. I'm not late, you reply, because you've learned that arguing specifics is sometimes the only way to maintain dignity. You're not early, he counters. In this work, early is on time is late is unemployed. You nod. There's wisdom in that. Even if it's annoying. You follow him through the courtyard, past the great statue of Shamash, the sun god, whose stone gaze seems to follow you with what you can only describe as mild disappointment. The statue's face is serene, but you can't shake the feeling that if it could speak, it would say something like, "Really, this is the best we've got." The temple courtyard is quiet. Most of the priests are still inside performing the morning rituals. You can hear the faint sound of chanting, the rhythmic clang of a bronze bell, the shuffle of sandaled feet on stone. Incense smoke curls through the air, carrying with it the scent of cedarwood and myrrh. It's a smell that makes you feel both grounded and slightly lightheaded, as if the gods are reminding you that they're always watching, always waiting for you to mess up. The Baru leads you to a small altar where a sheep is waiting. It's a young ram, its wool thick and clean. It chews cud lazily, completely unaware that its internal organs are about to become a divine text. You feel a pang of sympathy for it. Then again, if the gods are going to write messages, they need parchment. This particular parchment just happens to bleat. Today, the Baru says, you will observe. You will not speak. You will not flinch. You will watch, and you will learn. You nod again. This is your life now. Watching, learning, waiting for the moment when the gods decide to whisper their secrets through the guts of a farm animal. But here's the thing. You're not just learning to read livers. You're learning to carry the weight of every decision a king might make, every battle that might be fought, every harvest that might fail. Because when the Bearzer looks at that liver and says, "The gods favour this campaign," or "The gods warn against this marriage," People listen, lives change, very kingdoms rise or fall, no pressure. The Baru picks up a ceremonial knife. It gleams in the early morning light, polished to a mirror shine. You can see your reflection in it, distorted and wavering, as if even your own image is uncertain about what comes next. Do you know why we do this? The Baru asks. To see the future, you answer. No, he says, we do this to survive it. The ram doesn't struggle. That's one of the first things that surprises you. It stands there, calm, almost serene, as the Baru murmurs prayers in a language so old that even he probably doesn't fully understand it. The words are formulaic, passed down through generations of diviners, each syllable a key meant to unlock the attention of the gods. You watch as he places one hand on the sheep's head, steadying it, and raises the knife with the other. The blade catches the light, flashing like a warning, and then it's over. One swift motion. The sheep's legs buckle, and it collapses onto the stone altar. Blood pools, dark and viscous, running into the grooves carved into the altar's surface for precisely this purpose. It's efficient, clinical, and yet there's something deeply strange about it. This isn't dinner. This isn't survival. This is communication. The Baru works quickly, cutting into the sheep's abdomen with practiced precision. The smell hits you immediately. Warm, metallic, earthy, is not entirely unpleasant, which is somehow worse. Your stomach shifts uneasily, but you keep your face neutral. The Baru glances at you, checking, and you know that if you flinch, if you turn away, you've failed some invisible test. He reaches inside and pulls out the liver. It's larger than you expected, a deep reddish-brown mass that glistens wetly in the morning light. He holds it up, turning it slowly, examining it from every angle. His eyes narrow. His fingers trace a path along its surface, following the natural grooves and bumps, the small nodules that dot its landscape like cities on a map. This, he says, pointing to a smooth groove on the left lobe, is the path. It tells us about journeys, campaigns, movements. You lean in closer. Coeur. The path looks like a natural feature, something that would exist in every liver. But apparently not. Apparently the gods sculpt each liver differently, encoding their messages in the flesh itself. And this, he continues, pointing to another groove, is the presence. It tells us whether the gods were here during the offering. If this is deep and clear, the gods listened. If it's shallow or absent, they turned away. You stare at the presence groove. It's there, distinct and well-defined. Relief washes over you, which is ridiculous because you didn't perform the ritual. But somehow the idea that the gods were present, that they cared enough to show up, makes the whole thing feel less arbitrary. The Baru sets the liver down on a clean cloth and picks up a clay tablet. On it are inscribed hundreds of omens, conditional statements that match liver features to predictions. If the path is doubled, the king's campaign will succeed. If the presence is absent, the offering is rejected. If the finger is enlarged, there will be rebellion in the north. He scans the tablet, cross-referencing what he sees in the liver with what's written. It's like watching someone solve a puzzle, except the pieces are made of meat, and the stakes are whether a city goes to war. After several minutes, he looks up. The gods approves, he says simply. The campaign to the north is favoured. You blink. That's it. A sheep dies, a liver is examined, and now thousands of soldiers will march because a groove looks good? Yes, that's exactly it. But here's the part no one tells you. The Baru doesn't just read the liver, he reads the room. He knows what the king wants to hear, he knows what the priests expect. He knows that if he's wrong, his head might end up on a spike. So the liver is important, yes, but so is politics, so is survival. You think about this as the Baru wraps the liver in linen and sets it aside. Somewhere scribes will record this omen. Somewhere the king will hear the news and smile. Somewhere soldiers will sharpen their swords. And somewhere in the back of your mind a question starts to form. What if the gods aren't writing anything at all? What if we're just staring at sheep guts and pretending we understand, but you don't say that out loud, you're not suicidal. Instead, you help the Baru clean the altar, scrubbing away the blood with sand and water. The stone is porous, and no matter how much you scrub, you know the blood will leave a stain. Everything here leaves a stain, every prophecy, every decision, every life ended in the name of knowing what comes next. Listen, hear the water as it runs over the stone, Feel the rough texture of the sand under your fingers. Smell the lingering incense mixing with the iron tang of blood. This is the world of the diviner. This is the life of someone who stands between mortals and gods, holding a sheep's liver like a map to tomorrow. It's exhausting, it's terrifying, and you've only just started. After the ritual, the Baru sends you to the temple library. Yes, temples have libraries. They're not Koei reading nooks with armchairs and warm lighting. They're dim, clay-scented rooms filled with rows of cuneiform tablets stacked like the world's least exciting Jenga tower. Your task is simple. Read the omen compendiums, learn the signs, memorize the predictions, understand the patterns. You pull a tablet from the shelf. It's heavy, about the size of your forearm, and covered in tiny wedge-shaped marks pressed into the clay millennia ago. You squint at the text. Your cuneiform is decent, but reading it is still like trying to decipher a grocery list written by someone with terrible handwriting. The first omen reads, "If the path is split into two, the army will achieve victory and return safely." Okay, makes sense. 2 paths, 2 outcomes, both good, easy. The next one, "If the presence is absent, the god did not attend the offering and the question is void." Also reasonable. No god, no answer. Got it. Then you get to this one. "If the finger of the liver points toward the throne, the king will face betrayal from within his own house, and blood will flow in the palace before the moon wanes." You pause, read it again, "the finger of the liver." Someone at some point looked at a liver and thought, "Yeah, that part looks like a finger." And then they decided that if it pointed a certain way, it meant the king was going to get stabbed by his own family. You sit back, staring at the tableau. This is not a system built on randomness. This is generations of observation, pattern matching, and let's be honest, a hefty dose of anxiety. Because here's the thing, Mesopotamians are convinced the world is going to end. Not in some abstract, distant future way, but soon, maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe the next time the Euphrates floods a little too high. And why wouldn't they think that? The world already ended once. Everyone knows the story of Atrahasis. The Great Flood, the gods' decision to wipe humanity off the map because we were too noisy. The gods saved a few people, sure, but only after drowning everyone else. That's not exactly a comforting bedtime story. So every Mesopotamian walks around with this ukulele hum of existential dread. Will the gods do it again? Will the rivers rise? Will the sky fall? Will the god Eri, the lord of plague and war, decide he's had enough and burn the world to ash? The answer is probably not today, but maybe. And that's why you're here, reading liver omens until your eyes cross. Because if you can predict the gods' moods, if you can see disaster coming, maybe, just maybe, you can stop it. Or at least prepare, or at the very least die knowing you saw it coming. The tablet in your hands grows heavier. You set it down and pick up another. This one is different. It's a prophecy text, not an omen list. It describes a vision of the end times, written in the third person, as if the author is narrating a memory of the future. The land will be silent, the rivers will dry, the cities will burn, the gods will abandon their temples, the people will cry out but no one will hear. You read it twice, then a third time. There's no ritual here. No sheep, no liver. Just words, cold and final, describing a world where everything stops. This isn't a warning. It's a certainty dressed up as possibility. You close your eyes. The library is quiet except for the faint rustle of palm fronds outside and the distant hum of the city. You think about the Baru, about the king, about the soldiers who will march north because a sheep's liver looked promising. You think about the farmers who plant their crops based on star charts and eclipse predictions. You think about the parents who name their children after gods, hoping for protection, for favour, for just a little bit of luck. Everyone is trying to control the uncontrollable. Everyone is trying to survive the future before it arrives. And you're learning to be the person who looks them in the eye and says, "I've seen tomorrow. Here's what you need to do." It's a hell of a responsibility, and you're not even sure you believe in it yet. But belief doesn't matter. What matters is that they believe. And as long as they do, you have a job, you have a purpose, you have a reason to wake up every morning and stare at sheep guts like they hold the secrets of the universe, which apparently they do. You've been at this for 3 months now, and you still can't quite shake the feeling that you're participating in the world's most elaborate prank. Except no one's laughing. Everyone is dead serious, literally in some cases. Today, you're assisting in a royal extispicy. That means the king himself has a question, and the Baru has been summoned to answer it. The stakes are higher than usual, which is saying something, because the stakes are always high when gods are involved. The king wants to know if he should marry his daughter to the Prince of Elam. It's a political alliance, the kind that could secure peace for a generation or spark a war that makes everyone wish the flood would come back and finish the job. You arrive at the temple before dawn. The Baru is already there, preparing. He's wearing his ceremonial robes, deep blue linen embroidered with silver thread that catches the lamplight. He looks less like a priest and more like someone about to perform surgery, which, in a sense, he is. The altar has been purified. The tools have been blessed. The incense is burning, thick and cloying, filling the room with a haze that makes everything feel dreamlike. You take your place beside the Baru, trying not to look as nervous as you feel. The sheep is brought in. This one is different from the others you've seen. It's pure white, unblemished, the kind of animal that costs more than most people earn in a year. Its wool has been washed and combed. It's wearing a small garland of flowers around its neck, as if someone decided that if it's going to die for the gods, it might as well look nice doing it. The Baru kneels beside the altar and begins the prayer. His voice is low, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. He's not asking the gods for permission. He's asking them to be present, to pay attention, to write their answer clearly, because the king is waiting and he's not known for his patience. Shamash, great lord, judge of heaven and earth, be present in this offering. Adad, lord of storms, lend your voice to this divination. Let the omens be clear. Let the signs be true. Let the gods speak, and let us understand. The words hang in the air, mingling with the incense smoke. You feel the weight of them, the expectation. Somewhere the king is pacing. Somewhere scribes are preparing to record the outcome. Somewhere a young princess is wondering if her life is about to change forever, based on the shape of a sheep's internal organs. The Baru picks up the knife. The sheep stands still, as if it understands the gravity of the moment. Maybe it does. Maybe animals know more than we give them credit for. The blade falls, quick and clean, and the sheep collapses without a sound. Blood flows. The Baru works with practiced efficiency, opening the abdomen, reaching inside. He pulls out not just the liver this time, but the heart, the lungs, the gallbladder. This is a full extispicy, a comprehensive reading. Every organ has something to say. He lays them out on a bronze plate, arranging them carefully, almost reverently. The liver takes centre stage, of course, it's the star of the show, but the other organs are supporting actors, each with their own lines, their own messages. The Baru examines the heart first. Its size, its colour, the thickness of its walls. The heart is strong, he murmurs. The alliance has emotional weight. There is genuine intent here, not just politics. Next, the lungs. He inflates them gently, checking for irregularities, for signs of disease or imbalance. The breath is even. Communication will flow. There are no hidden blockages. Then the gallbladder. He holds it up to the light, checking its colour, its texture. No bitterness, no poison. This is a clean negotiation. Finally, the liver. He turns it over in his hands, examining every groove, every nodule, every tiny imperfection. His fingers trace the path, the presence, the gate, the throne. He's reading it like a map, following roads only he can see, some will see. Minutes pass. The room is silent except for the crackle of the oil lamps and the faint sound of your own heartbeat. You hold your breath, waiting. At last, the Baru looks up. His face is unreadable. The gods approve, he says. The marriage will bring prosperity. The path is clear. The presence is strong. There is a single mark here. He points to a small nodule on the liver's edge that warns of resistance from minor factions, but it will not succeed. You exhale. The princess is getting married. The king will be pleased. The scribes will record it. And somewhere in Elam, another princess is also learning her fate, decided by a different sheep, a different liver, a different priest who also believes he's reading the handwriting of the gods. The Baru wraps the organs in linen and hands them to an assistant, who will take them to be burned as a final offering. The smoke will carry the message back to the gods, completing the cycle of communication. You help clean the altar again. The stone is warm under your hands, still holding the heat of the blood. You wonder, not for the first time, what the gods actually think of all this. Do they laugh? Do they shake their heads? Do they even notice? Or do they lean in close, watching, waiting, genuinely trying to guide us through the chaos of existence with the only tools we're capable of understanding? You don't know. You probably never will. But you keep scrubbing because the work must be done, and tomorrow there will be another question. Another sheep, another desperate attempt to see just a little bit further into the dark. After the royal extispicy, the Baru takes you aside. You expect a lecture, maybe some criticism about your posture, or the way you held the incense burner. Instead, he hands you a clay model. It's a liver, sculpted in miniature, with grooves and markings etched into its surface. This, he says, is your textbook. You turn it over in your hands. It's surprisingly detailed, each feature labelled in tiny cuneiform script. The path, the presence, the gate, the finger, the throne, the yoke, the well. Each one has a name, and each name carries meaning. The liver is not random, the Baru explains. It is a reflection of the cosmos. Every part corresponds to something in the world. The right lobe is the enemy, the left is us, the division between. Them is the battlefield. The presence is the god's attention. The path is fate itself, the road we walk. You stare at the model, starting to make sense in a strange, uncomfortable way. The liver isn't just an organ, it's a miniature universe, a map of forces and powers that shape reality. When the Baru reads it, he's not making things up. He's interpreting a language, one written in flesh and blood by hands we can't see. Every diviner learns this, the Baru continues. We study these models, we memorize the meanings, and then we pray we never forget, because if we misread the signs, people die. That last part hangs in the air. People die. Not might, not could, do. The Baru walks to a shelf and pulls down another tablet. This one is older, the clay cracked and worn. He shows you a passage. In the reign of King Zimri Lim, the diviner Ascudum declared the omens favourable for battle. The king marched. The army was destroyed. Ascudum was executed for false prophecy. You swallow hard. Oh, if you're wrong. I'm dead, the Baru finishes. Or worse. Sometimes they don't just kill you. Sometimes they kill your family, your students, anyone who might carry your mistake forward. The weight of it settles over you like a wet blanket. This isn't just a job, it's a tightrope walk over a pit of spikes. And every time you read a liver, you're betting your life that you got it right. But here's the thing, the Baru says, and for the first time you see something like a smile on his face. The gods don't lie. If you listen carefully, if you look honestly, they tell you what you need to know. The problem is when we try to twist the answer to fit what we want to hear. You think about that? The king wanted approval for the marriage, the liver gave it. But what if it hadn't? Would the Baru have found a way to make it work anyway? Would he have risked his life to tell the truth? Or would he have bent the interpretation just enough to survive? You don't ask. Some questions don't have safe answers. Instead, you take the clay liver model back to your room. You spend the evening studying it by lamplight, tracing the grooves with your finger, memorizing the names, trying to see the cosmos in this all-dead thing. The path. The way forward. The presence. Whether the gods are listening. The gate. The opening through which fate flows. The throne. Power. Authority. The king. Each one a piece of the puzzle. Each one a thread in the tapestry of tomorrow. Outside, the city sleeps, or tries to. Somewhere a baby cries. Somewhere a dog barks. Somewhere a merchant worries about his debts. And a soldier sharpens his sword, and a farmer stares at the sky, hoping for rain. And you sit in your small room holding a clay liver, learning the language the gods supposedly speak. It's strange. It's eerie. It's the closest thing to magic you've ever known. And tomorrow you'll do it all again. A week later, news arrives. The king's daughter has been married. The ceremony was beautiful. The alliance is sealed. And so far, no one has tried to kill anyone, which is always a good sign in international diplomacy. The Baru is pleased. Vindication is rare in this line of work. and he savours it. He even smiles at you, which is unnerving because you didn't know his face could do that. But then, 3 days later, a messenger arrives. A skirmish broke out on the border. A minor faction, just as the omen predicted, tried to disrupt the trade routes. They were quickly subdued, but not before 2 soldiers died and a caravan was burned. The Baru's smile fades. "See," he says quietly, "the omen was right. Even the detail about resistance, but those soldiers are still dead." You don't know what to say to that. He was right. The gods spoke clearly. The warning was given, and yet people died anyway. "That's the part they don't tell you," the Baru says, his voice heavy. "We read the future, but we can't change it. We can prepare, we can warn, but the future arrives whether we're ready or not." It's the most honest thing he's ever said to you, and it hits harder than you expected. All this work, all this study, all these sacrifices, and in the end, the future is still the future. It comes, indifferent and inevitable, and all we can do is watch it unfold. But then again, maybe that's the point. Maybe knowing isn't about control. Maybe it's just about dignity. The dignity of seeing what's coming. The dignity of saying, "I knew this might happen, and I prepared as best I could." You think about the soldiers who died. Someone loved them. Someone is grieving tonight, and they'll never know that their deaths were predicted, written in the liver of a sheep 3 weeks before it happened. Is that better or worse? You honestly don't know. The Baru sees the question in your eyes. "You'll wrestle with this for the rest of your life," he says, "and you'll never find an answer that satisfies you. But you'll keep doing it anyway, because someone has to stand between the people and the dark holding a lamp, however small." He's right, of course. You hate that he's right. But you also understand, maybe for the first time, why anyone would choose this life. It's not about power. It's not even about wisdom. It's about showing up day after day and saying, "I'll look for you. I'll watch the signs. I'll tell you what I see." Even if what you see is terrible, even if no one wants to hear it, even if you're wrong and your head ends up on a spike, you stay up late that night, listening to the city breathe around you. The wind whispers through the palm trees. Somewhere, a temple bell rings, calling the priest to midnight prayers. The stars wheel overhead, silent and ancient, carrying their own messages that only the astrologers can read. Tomorrow there will be another sheep, another liver, another question posed to gods who may or may not be listening. And you'll be there, knife in hand, ready to read the answer, however cryptic, however terrifying, however true, because someone has to. And apparently that someone is you. Your training takes a new turn. The Baru announces that you'll now be studying celestial omens. This is both exciting and terrifying because while livers are complicated, at least they stay still. The sky, on the other hand, is a constantly shifting puzzle written in fire and void, and if you misread it, kingdoms tremble. You're sent to the observatory. It's not what you'd picture. No telescopes, no comfortable chairs, no one offering you hot beverages while you gaze at the cosmos. It's a flat rooftop on the ziggurat, exposed to the elements, with nothing but clay tablets, a stylus, and a very old astronomer priest named Nabusuma Ishkun, who seems personally offended by the concept of sleep. "Sit," he commands. You sit. The stone is cold beneath you, still holding the chill of the night even though the sun has barely set. What do you see? You look up. Stars, thousands of them scattered across the black like sesame seeds on bread. "I see stars." "Specifics," he snaps. "Where is the hand of Enlil? Where does the moon stand relative to the path of Anu?" You have no idea what he's talking about. You say so. He sighs, a sound that suggests he's reconsidering every life choice that led him to this moment. The sky is a tablet. The stars are words. The planets are gods walking through the heavens. Everything means something. Nothing is random. He points to a cluster of stars. That is the wagon. When it appears in the west after sunset, it signals the time for planting. When it shifts to the south, prepare for drought. He gestures to another constellation. That is the bull of heaven. When it stands high at midnight, the king's power is secure. When it dips low, expect rebellion or illness in the royal house. You try to follow, but the sky is so vast, so full, that picking out individual patterns feels impossible. It's like trying to find a specific sentence in a library that never ends. "You'll learn," Nabusuma Ishkun says, though he doesn't sound convinced. "You'll spend every clear night up here. You'll watch the moon wax and wane. You'll track the movements of Venus, Jupiter, and Mars. You'll record every anomaly, every deviation, every eclipse. Why, you ask? He looks at you as if you've just asked why water is wet. Because the gods live in the sky. Their movements are their decisions. When Venus rises before the sun, it means the goddess Ishtar is pleased and will bless the land. When Mars lingers in a constellation too long, war is coming. When the moon is swallowed, he pauses, and for the first time you see genuine fear in his eyes. When the moon is swallowed by shadow, the world itself is in danger. Eclipses. He's talking about eclipses. You've heard stories. People screaming, markets shutting down, priests running through the streets banging drums to scare away whatever demon is devouring. The moon. Pure primal panic, because if the moon can be eaten, what's stopping the sun from being next? What's stopping the gods from deciding that this particular experiment with humanity has gone on long enough? You'll learn to predict them, Nabusmeshkin says. The cycles repeat. The math is complex, but it works. If you can warn the king 3 days before an eclipse, he can prepare. Rituals, sacrifices. Sometimes, if we're very lucky, a substitute king. You blink. A what? A substitute king. We crown a peasant, let him sit on the throne during the dangerous days, and if disaster strikes, it strikes him instead. Then we kill him, just to be sure, and the real king returns. You stare at him. He's not joking. This is actual policy. Find some poor farmer, tell him he's king for a week, and then murder him to save the real king from cosmic wrath. And you say divination is a noble profession. Nabusuma Ishkun hands you a tablet. It's covered in calculations, numbers, and star charts that look like someone sneezed in cuneiform. Study this. Tomorrow night we observe. The night after you tell me where Jupiter will be. If you're wrong, you start over. You take the tablet. It's heavy. Everything here is heavy. The tablet's the responsibility. The knowledge that every calculation you make could mean the difference between a peaceful year and absolute chaos. That night you lie on the cold stone and stare up at the sky. The stars stare back, indifferent and eternal. Somewhere up there the gods are moving. Somewhere up there decisions are being made that will ripple down into your life, into everyone's lives, shaping the future in ways no one can fully understand. And you're supposed to read that. You're supposed to look at the infinite and say, I know what this means. It's absurd, it's beautiful, it's the most human thing you've ever heard of. So you study, you memorize, you watch the sky like it's a language you're desperate to learn, because maybe, just maybe, if you can understand it, you won't feel so small under its gaze. 6 months into your celestial training, it happens. An eclipse. You saw it coming, Nabusumishkin's calculations were precise, but knowing doesn't make it less eerie. The night sky is clear, and the full moon hangs bright and heavy, like a silver coin dropped into the darkness. Then slowly, a shadow begins to creep across its face. You watch from the ziggurat. Below, in the city, chaos is already unfolding. Someone spotted it first, probably a guard on night watch, and within minutes, the alarm spreads. Drums begin to pound, a frantic rhythm meant to scare away the demon. Voices rise in panicked prayer. Somewhere a child is crying and you can hear a mother's voice, soothing but tight with fear, saying, It's okay. The priests will fix it, they always do. Except you can't fix it. You can only watch. The shadow grows, eating the moon bite by bite. The silver light dims. The streets grow darker. And even though you know this is just the Earth's shadow passing over the lunar surface, Nabusumishkin explained it to you months ago, there's still a primal part of your brain that whispers, what if this time it doesn't come back? Nabusuma Ishkun stands beside you utterly calm. He's seen dozens of eclipses. To him this is routine, but you notice that even he murmurs a prayer under his breath just in case. In the palace the substitute king is being crowned. You know this because you helped prepare the ritual earlier. A man named Damik Ilishu, a farmer who was probably having a perfectly nice day until the priest showed up and informed him that he was about to become king. For 6 days he'll wear the crown, he'll sit on the throne, he'll eat the king's food, sleep in the king's bed, and everyone will bow to him. And then, when the dangerous days pass and the real king returns, Damik Ilishu will be quietly executed and buried with honours. His family will be compensated. They'll be told he died a hero. which is technically true, in the way that jumping on a grenade is heroic. He didn't have much of a choice. You wonder what he's thinking right now, watching the moon disappear, and knowing that if anything goes wrong, if the kingdom is attacked, if a plague breaks out, if the gods decide to send us a message in blood and fire, it's his head on the line. The moon is fully dark now. The city is silent. Even the drums have stopped. The only sound is the wind, sighing through the ziggurat's tears like the breath of something vast and sleeping. Then at the edge, a sliver of light returns. The shadow begins to retreat. The moon slowly, stubbornly comes back. A cheer rises from the city. Relief, joy, the kind of wild laughter that comes after terror has passed. The drums resume, but this time it's celebratory. The gods have spared them, the demon has been driven off, the world will keep turning. Nabu-Summ-Ishkun allows himself a small smile. See, the math works. Does the substitute king know the math works, you ask? His smile fades. No. He'll spend the next 5 days in absolute terror, convinced that every ache, every shadow, every strange noise is the gods coming for him, and then he'll die, and the real king will resume his throne, and we'll all pretend it was necessary. You want to argue. You want to say it's cruel, unnecessary, a waste of a human life. But then you remember, this entire civilization is built on the belief that the gods are watching, judging, ready to wipe us out the moment we displease them. And if a substitute king buys peace of mind, if it keeps the populace calm and the kingdom stable, then from their perspective it's not just reasonable, it's essential. You don't have to like it, you just have to understand it. The moon continues to brighten, reclaiming its place in the sky. Below, the city settles. Families return to their homes. The night watch resumes. And somewhere in the palace, Demik-Ilishu sits on a throne that isn't his, counting down the days until his life ends in the name of a king who'll never thank him. You look at Nabu-Summ-Ishkun. Does it ever feel wrong to you? All of this? He's quiet for a long time. When he finally speaks, his voice is soft. Every day. But what's the alternative? Tell them the sky is just there, that the stars don't care, that we're alone in the dark, shouting into the void and no one is listening. He shakes his head. They'd rather die believing the gods are cruel than live believing the gods are absent. You think about that as the moon fully returns, bright and whole, as if nothing happened, as if a shadow didn't just sweep across it, reminding everyone of how fragile their world is, how easily the light can be taken away. The sky keeps its secrets, and you keep learning to read them, one star, one omen, one eclipse at a time. In your studies you come across a strange concept, the Tablet of Destinies. It's mentioned in myths, in prayers, in the mutterings of priests late at night when they think no one is listening. The tablet is said to be a literal object, held by the king of the gods, on which the fate of the universe is written. Everything, every war, every harvest, every birth, every death, is recorded there before it happens. Destiny isn't just a vague concept, it's a bureaucratic document, filed and stored in the heavens, and the gods consult it like clerks checking inventory. You find this both fascinating and deeply disturbing. If everything's already written, you ask Nabu-Summ-Ishkun one night, then why do we bother with divination? We're just reading a script that can't be changed. He looks at you with something like pity. You're thinking like a mortal. The gods don't experience time the way we do. To them, past and future are the same. The tablet doesn't dictate what will happen. It records what is happening across all of time simultaneously. Your brain hurts. Think of it this way, he continues. You can see a tree. You can see the seed it came from and the fruit it will bear. To you, those are past, present, and future. To the gods, they're all the same moment. The tree is always growing, always seeded, always bearing fruit. Divination lets us glimpse that eternal present so we can align our actions with the flow of fate instead of fighting against it. You nod slowly, pretending to understand, which you don't. But it's comforting in a strange way to think that fate isn't random. That somewhere, somehow, there's a logic to all of this, even if it's a logic far beyond your comprehension. That night, alone on the rooftop, you stare at the stars and imagine the tablet. You picture it as a massive clay tablet, the size of a city, covered in wedge-shaped marks too small to read. Every line a life, every cuneiform cluster a decision, a consequence, a ripple spreading outward through time. And somewhere a god runs their finger along the surface, tracing the futures of mortals, deciding which threads to pull, which to let unravel. You wonder if they care, if they feel anything when they see a name, your name, and know exactly how your story ends. Probably not. Gods have bigger things to worry about. Cosmic balance, rival deities, making sure the universe doesn't collapse in on itself. A single human life is a footnote at best, but that footnote is still your life. And even if it's already written, you'll live it as if you have a choice, because what else can you do? You're sitting in the temple courtyard, taking a break from liver studies, when an old woman approaches. She's a storyteller, one of the few remaining who still remembers the old tales word for word. Her name is Beletili, and she's been telling stories since before you were born, maybe even before your parents were born. Age has carved her face into something timeless, like she's part way to becoming a clay tablet herself. "You're the new diviner," she says. It's not a question. "Apprentice," you correct. She waves a hand dismissively. "Same thing. You read the future, yes? Then you should know the past. Sit, that you sit." She settles beside you, her joints creaking in that specific way that makes you wince in sympathy. She smells like old wool and smoke, and her eyes are sharp despite the cloudiness at their edges. "I'm going to tell you the story of Atrahasis," she says. "You've heard it before, I'm sure everyone has, but you haven't heard it the way I tell it." You lean in. You have heard the story in bits and pieces, usually in formal ritual contexts, but Beletili has a reputation. When she tells a story, you don't just hear it, you live it. She begins. Long ago, before your grandparents' grandparents, before cities, before kings, there were gods, and these gods were not idle. They worked. They dug the rivers, they cleared the fields, they built the world with their own hands. But gods, like anyone, grow tired of labour. So they complained to Enlil, the king of the gods. "Why must we toil?" they asked. "Why must we sweat and break our backs for this?" Her voice is rhythmic, almost hypnotic. You can feel the weight of the story settling over you like a blanket. Enlil heard their complaint, and he thought, this is reasonable. Gods should not be slaves. So the gods decided to create workers, us, humans. They took clay from the earth and mixed it with the blood of a slaughtered god, a rebel who had started the whole mess. From that mixture they shaped the first people. You've heard this part. It's in the prayers, but Beletili isn't done. At first it was good. Humans worked. Gods rested. Balance was achieved. But humans, as it turns out, are very good at multiplying. We spread, we built cities, we grew loud, we filled the world with noise, babies crying, markets shouting, festivals singing. And the gods who had finally found peace were kept awake by the racket. She pauses, letting that sink in. You think about the city around you, the constant hum of life. It's loud. You never really noticed until now. Enlil, she continues, grew furious. We made them, and now they torment us, he said. We must unmake them. So he sent a plague. It killed many, but not enough. Then he sent a drought. The rivers dried, the crops failed, and people starved by the thousands, but still humanity clung to life. Her voice drops lower, and you have to lean in to hear. So Enlil decided on a final solution. A flood. Not a little flood, not a storm, but the flood. Water from the heavens and the deep rising until there was no dry land, until every human, every animal, every living thing was drowned and washed away. The courtyard feels colder suddenly. You wrap your arms around yourself. But one god, Enki, the wise one, had grown fond of humans. He couldn't bear to see us all die. So he went to a man named Atrahasis, a good man, a humble man, and he warned him. "Build a boat," Enki whispered. "Build it large, bring your family, bring the animals. The flood is coming, and only those in the boat will survive." You know this part too. It's the cornerstone of Mesopotamian identity. The flood happened. We survived, barely. Atrahasis built the boat. He worked day and night, and his neighbours mocked him. "Why are you building a boat in the desert?" they asked. He didn't answer. He just kept building. And when the rains came, when the waters rose, when the screams of the drowning filled the air, she pauses, and you realise you've been holding your breath. Atrahasis was safe. He and his family and the animals floated above the destruction, and they were. She leans back, her story voice fading into something more conversational. When the waters receded, the gods realised what they'd done. The world was stallant, empty. No one was left to work, no one was left to worship. The gods had nearly destroyed themselves by destroying us. What happened next, you ask, even though you know? Enlil was furious that anyone survived, but Enki defended Atrahasis. You can't just kill them all, he said. We need them, but we also need peace. So they made a deal. Humans would continue, but with limits. Our lifespans were shortened, diseases were introduced. War, wild animals, infertility, tools to keep our numbers in check, to keep us from growing too loud again. She looks at you, her eyes intense. And that's why we live in fear. Because we know deep in our bones that the gods have already destroyed us once. They spared a few, yes, but only a few, the rest drowned, screaming into the dark. And every time it rains too hard, every time the river rises, every time there's a drought or a plague, we wonder, is this it? Are the gods trying again? You sit in silence. The story is over, but its weight remains. The courtyard around you feels smaller, more fragile. The sun is shining, birds are singing, people are going about their day. But, underneath it all, there's a current of dread, a memory embedded in the culture itself. We've ended before. We could end again. Beletili pats your hand. Now you know why your job matters. You're not just predicting the future. You're watching for the signs that the gods are getting angry again. You're the canary in the mine. The lookout in the tower. If you see the storm coming, maybe, just maybe, we'll have time to build another boat. She stands, joints protesting, and shuffles away, leaving you alone with the story, the sun, and the weight of knowing that your entire civilization is built on the edge of divine patience. After Beletili's story, you can't stop thinking about the flood. It's not just a myth, it's living history etched into the collective memory of every Mesopotamian. The Sumerian king list, a document you've seen in the temple archives, literally divides time into before the flood and after the flood. There were kings before. They ruled for thousands of years each, living impossibly long lives. Then came the flood. The list resumes. After the flood, kingship descended from heaven again. It's a historical reset button. Everything before, gone, washed away. The current age, version 2.0, built on the ruins of what came before. You start noticing how often the flood appears in daily life. Prayers reference it, rituals invoke it. When someone wants to emphasize how ancient something is, they say, this dates to before the flood. It's the ultimate timestamp, the 0 point of history. But here's the uncomfortable part. If it happened once, why not again? You asked the Baru about this during one of your lessons. He's in the middle of explaining the finer points of gallbladder interpretation, but you interrupt. Do the gods still want to destroy us? He stops, sets down the organ he's holding, looks at you for a long moment. Yes, you weren't expecting honesty. Why? Because we're exactly what we were before the flood. Loud, chaotic, prone to sin. The only difference is now they've implemented population control. Shorter lives, disease, war, it's maintenance, not mercy. So the flood could happen again. It will happen again, he corrects. Maybe not in your lifetime, maybe not for 1,000 years, but the gods have done it before and they'll do it again. That's the nature of things. Creation, destruction, creation. The cycle repeats. You feel a chill despite the heat. Then what's the point? Why build cities? Why plant crops? Why have children if it's all going to wash away? The Baru smiles, but it's a sad smile. But because that's what living things do. We build knowing it won't last. We plant knowing the harvest might fail. We love knowing we'll lose. The flood doesn't negate life. It makes it precious. Every day we survive is a gift the gods haven't yet revoked. He picks up the gallbladder again, returning to the lesson as if nothing happened. But something has shifted in you. The fear is still there, but now it's mixed with something else. Defiance, maybe, or determination. If the gods are going to drown the world again, you'll be damned if you don't live fully in the time you have. That night you don't go straight to sleep. You walk through the city, really seeing it for the first time. The children playing in the streets, the merchants arguing over prices, the smell of bread baking, the sound of laughter from a tavern. The old couple sitting on their doorstep, watching the sun set in comfortable silence. All of this could be gone tomorrow, or it could last another 1,000 years. No one knows, not even the diviners. But tonight it's here, alive, real, and that has to be enough. The flood story haunts you. It's in everything now, like a song you can't get out of your head. You start seeing references to it in omen texts, in prayers, in casual conversations. Someone drops a jar and jokes, "Guess the gods are angry again." It's humour born from fear, the kind where you laugh so you don't scream. You're studying a set of prophecy tablets when you find one that stops you cold. It's labelled Prophecy of the End Days, and it describes a future, or maybe a past, time is weird in these texts, where the world falls silent, the rivers dry up, the cities burn, and the gods abandon their temples. The people will cry out, but no one will hear. You read it again, then a third time. This isn't an omen that can be avoided by offering a sheep. This isn't a celestial event you can predict and prepare for. This is just ending, final, complete. You bring the tablet to Nabu Suma Ishkun. What is this? He glances at it, then back at his star charts. Exactly what it says, a prophecy of the end. Can it be stopped? No. Then why write it down? He shrugs. Why do we write anything? So someone knows. So when it happens, maybe one person will look up at the burning sky and think, this was foretold, and in that moment they'll feel less alone. You want to argue, but you can't, because he's right. Knowing the end is coming doesn't stop it, but it does make it yours. It transforms mindless chaos into something witnessed, something understood, even if only barely. You think about Atrahasis building his boat while his neighbours laughed. He knew, he prepared, and when the flood came he wasn't surprised. He was ready. Maybe that's all divination ever was. Not about controlling the future, but about being ready for it. About saying, I saw this coming, and I chose to face it with my eyes open. You carefully return the tablet to its shelf. Around you, the Temple Boar library is quiet, filled with thousands of prophecies, omens and histories. Stories of floods and fires, plagues and wars, gods and monsters. Every possible way the world might end, recorded in clay, waiting for the future to prove them right. And you think, maybe the world doesn't have to end. Maybe we keep surviving, keep rebuilding, keep telling the stories. Maybe the gods keep threatening, but never quite follow through. Maybe the flood was a one-time thing, a lesson learned. Or maybe we're just on borrowed time, living in the calm between two storms, and all we can do is light our lamps, say our prayers, and hope that when the waters rise, someone remembered to build a boat. Either way, tomorrow there will be another liver to read, another star to chart, another question to ask of gods who may or may not answer. And you'll be there, doing your job, watching for signs, standing between the people and the dark. Because someone has to. And maybe, in the end, that's enough. The summer comes early, hotter than any you remember. You can taste iron in the air before the sun even rises, a metallic promise that nothing living will find comfort today. By mid-morning, every shadow on every wall looks brittle, as if a single touch could shatter the darkness into powder. The courtyard's empty, fountains sputter, and even the palace hounds slink beneath staircases, tongues lolling like wilted petals. You stand with Varu on the highest terrace of the ziggurat, watching the horizon blur. Distance dissolves into shimmering waves. The desert looks less like a place and more like a fever dream no one can wake from. Somewhere below, a brazier of juniper chips tries to burn, but the heat steals its breath. The smoke rises only a handspan before falling back, sluggish and confused. Listen, the Baru says. You do. At first you hear nothing. Then you realise you are hearing nothing. No goats, no hammering, no gossip, no footsteps. The city has gone soundless, stunned into silence by the furnace above. This is the breath of error, he continues, naming the plague god whose temper is measured in degrees and droughts. If the wind fails 3 days in a row, fires will walk the streets on the 4th. You swallow. Mesopotamia burns often. Reed roofs are a candle's friend, but fires that walk are different. Walking fires jump lanes, cross canals, reappear where no ember should, as though some invisible hand is harvesting tinder for spite. You record the first day of stillness on a fresh clay tablet. One wedge for the date, one for the observation, one for the prayer you mutter, but are too embarrassed to write. When you set the stylus down, the clay is already drying faster than usual, edges curling like leaves in late autumn. That night you dream of red sand trickling through your fingers. Each grain bears a name you recognise. Friends, rivals, the girl who sells almonds by the western gate. The sand runs out, but the wind does not return. On the second breathless morning, fissures open outside the city walls. At first they resemble sun-baked wrinkles, nothing more. By noon they are deep enough to swallow a wheel. Farmers scoot their carts around them, muttering old proverbs. When the ground hungers, feed it water or blood. No one volunteers the latter, so they haul urns from the dwindling canal and pour them into the cracks, listening for the hiss of satisfaction. The earth remains thirsty. The Baru orders you to inspect the largest fissure. You climb down using a rope that feels more like spun straw. The air below is cooler but damp, smelling of clay jars forgotten in a cellar. Embedded in the walls you see pottery shards, fish bones, the abrupt curve of a cuneiform tablet broken clean through. Flood debris, you realise. Relics of some older catastrophe churned up by this new one. You trace your fingers over the broken tablet. The glyphs are partial, but enough survive to read aloud. If in the month of Ululu the earth opens its mouth and the wind is mute, kings will barter crowns for water, and gods will light their altars from the roofs of men. You copy the inscription onto waxboard, climb out, and hand the board to the Baru. He reads it once, twice, then tucks it into his sleeve as though concealment might delay fulfillment. 2 days, he reminds you. If tomorrow fails to breathe, we soak the city in river water. Every alley, every thatched beam. And if the river's too low? He does not answer. The third day rises without wind. Birds that normally quarrel over crumbs perch silent on lintels, beaks ajar, wings trembling to manufacture breezes that refuse to exist. Across the river, smoke erupts, quick, sharp, unnatural. 1 roof, then 3. The fire leaps the canal as if water were a jest, lands in the market quarter, and begins to choose its victims. You sprint with bucket lines until your arms shake, but the flames advance sideways, ignoring physics. They skirt damp cloth, bypass stone, and set ablaze a bronze shield displayed on a merchant's stall. You did not know metal could burn. Apparently neither did the merchant. His scream follows you long after his stall collapses. By dusk, half the market is black bonework. Charred beams kneel like penitents, their prayers answered in smoke. Yet the fire halts at the temple precinct, curling back as though were repelled by some boundary no mortal can see. The Baru declares an emergency divination. No sheep this time, there is no time, so he breaks a clay model of a liver, reading cracks instead of the veins. The largest fracture runs from the path to the throne. The gods accuse the king, he whispers. For what? For being alive while others burn. You carry the message to the palace, stepping over ash that is still recognisably basket, recognisably sandal. The king listens, jaw set. Then let the gods take my crown, he says, if it will buy rain. No one offers a substitute king. The memory of the last eclipse is too fresh. Instead, the court scribes compose a decree of humility. Taxes forgiven, granaries opened, royal jewels pledged to rebuild the market. A crown of copper replaces the gold one, sign of a monarch who shares his people's poverty. Whether symbolic metal satisfies divine anger, nobody knows, but symbolism is cheaper than jewels. That night the first wind in 3 days rises, hot, sulphur-tinged, but moving. It scatters embers outward into the fields where nothing remains to burn. The city holds its breath as the sky flickers amber, then fades to black. In the distance thunder murmurs, a voice clearing its throat. In the fire's aftermath, you join a salvage team digging through the market ruins. Beneath collapsed shelves of dyes and scorched barley sacks, you uncover mosaic tiles arranged in concentric squares, floor of Ur building older than the current city grid. A broken stair at the centre descends into darkness. Curiosity outvotes caution. You and 3 others lower lamps and yourselves underground. The stair ends in a chamber lined with stone shelves. Clay tablets crowd them, unbaked but miraculously intact, protected by the earth that drowned them centuries ago. The writing is proto-cuneiform, all sharp angles and confident economy of strokes, the tongue of kings who reigned before the flood. One tablet, larger than the rest, sits on a ledge as if awaiting you. Its surface bears a single symbol repeated thrice, a circle bisected by a vertical line. Nabusuma Ishkun later identifies it as the sigil for Namshub, speech that changes reality. When the tablet is lifted, its weight shifts oddly, as if something inside rearranges itself. You nearly drop it. A whisper flutters at the edge of hearing, too quick for meaning but too deliberate for imagination. The other diggers feel it too. One mutters an apology to no one visible. Back in the temple scriptorium, the Baru and the astronomer examine the find. They translate only the first line before exchanging glances thick with alarm. If the speech within is uttered, the Baru reads aloud, "The rivers shall reverse, the sky shall eat the stars, and all things written shall be unwritten." He orders the tablet sealed in a clay box, triple bound with bitumen, buried beneath the ziggurat's foundation. An inscription over the burial niche warns future priests, whoever opens this seeks stunt everlasting. You lie awake that night, hearing again the tablet's whisper. You wonder whether words can truly dismantle worlds, and whether some desperate soul, centuries hence, will pry open that niche, believing oblivion, preferable to whatever tomorrow holds. 3 days after the burial, a junior scribe named Zabatum Eli approaches you, eyes hollow. "The symbols from the stone," he says. "They etched themselves inside my mind. I can see them glowing when I close my eyes." You remind him that anything powerful enough to undo creation is best forgotten. He laughs, a dry papyrus sound. Memory is a scroll the gods write on both sides. Scrape one, the other smears. He begs you for an amulet, a prayer, something to erase the stills. You have none. Instead, you teach him the old trick of overwriting. Nightmares. Speak another story aloud until the first one fades. He chooses the tale of the shepherd who counted the stars. Night after night he recites it, voice shaking at first, steadier later. You join him, 2 silhouettes on the parapet, trading lines with the constellations above. On the 7th night, clouds blot the stars and his voice falters. When dawn breaks, Zabatum Eli is gone, leaving only his reed stylus pinned upright in a lump of soft clay, a farewell shaped like a dagger in the heart of language. No one finds his pshin, but near the western gate, fresh fissures carve a symbol eerily similar to the Namshub sigil. Forbids further excavation beneath the market. Some memories, he says, prefer the dark. The crisis of fire wanes, but food stores shrink. Trade caravans avoid a city rumoured to whisper doomsday from its very stones. Temple revenue falls, incense rations are cut. One morning you see Shamash's great statue still draped in soot. No one has spare oil to polish bronze when barley prices double. The astronomer remarks, half joking, that the gods must feel lonely without offerings. The Baru responds, not joking at all, that loneliness in gods breeds mischief. So the priests invent a festival requiring no lavish sacrifices, only voices. At sunset, everyone gathers by the riverbank. Instead of meat or jewels, citizens offer stories, songs of harvest, legends of first love, jokes about donkeys that drink palm wine. Laughter meets river's hush, and for the first time since the fire, you see faces unmasked by fear. Midway through, a breeze rolls off the water carrying the scent of rain-damp weeds, the first cool air in weeks. Thunder answers with a courteous rumble. Coins of water patter onto upturned palms. The crowd erupts, children chasing drops as if they were silver beetles. You tilt your head back, mouth open, letting the sky's gift dissolve on your tongue. The Baru stands beside you, robes soaked, smiling without reservation. Perhaps the gods required reminding, he says, that a quiet city is a dead city, and dead cities make poor temples. You suspect the gods already knew. Perhaps you required reminding. Rain revives fields and spirits alike. Unfortunately, it also awakens spores sleeping in mud since the last high flood. Within 12 days, children begin coughing sweet, floral-scented breaths. Mothers tie perfumed cloths over mouths, not realizing the danger lives inside the fragrance itself. By the time healers connect blossom scent to fever, half the weaving district wheezes like rusted bellows. You accompany temple physicians on house visits. The sick rooms bewilder. Bunches of fresh orchids hang above beds to mask decay, inadvertently thickening the invisible pollen that accelerates decline. Patients slip into delirium where they babble about gardens made of light, petals sharper than swords, bees whose hum recites their names backward. A desperate father slaughters a goat indoors, painting doorposts with blood to ward demons. The odour chases neighbours into alleys where they share the plague with passers-by. Contagion becomes conversation. Commerce spreads it further. The king convenes council. Advisors propose burning infected quarters. Another firestorm? The Baru argues no. Plague cannot be fought with torches. Flames only drive the sickness ahead of them like wolves before hunters. He suggests isolation wards outside city walls, staffed by the volunteers who already survived one scourge and therefore risk nothing new. You wonder who exactly survived. The astronomer proposes watching Mars, crimson harbinger of pestilence, for signs of retreat. Until then, no festivals, no markets, no temple choirs. Silence again, but this time chosen. You draft proclamation tablets while coughing fits rattle your ribs. The scent of crushed lilies clings to your hair though you have not touched a flower since yesterday. Isolation drains the city's colour. Streets echo like unfurnished rooms. You spend nights on the ziggurat roof, charting Mars as it crawls across the constellation of the goatfish. Each incremental shift feels like sliding a bead toward either doom or deliverance. Between measurements you speak aloud, sometimes to Nabusuma Ishkan, sometimes to the silent sky. You recount jokes, regrets, half-remembered lullabies. Words keep madness at bay, sentences prove lungs still function. One moonless hour you ask the void a reckless question. What would you have us do that we have not already tried? The answer is nothing human could call language, yet meaning arrives, survive each other. You do not mention this to the Baru. Prophecies sourced from insomnia seldom impress. On the 21st night, Mars finally sidles past the star that marks the goatfish's tail. The astronomer claps once, soft, as though afraid to wake the planet. Tomorrow, he predicts, fever will crest. Dawn brings wind-scented not of flowers, but of damp clay and sheep manure. Ordinary, blessed odours. Patients exhale without wheeze. The orchids in sick rooms wither, their purpose spent. Families emerge blinking, counting survivors and absences with simultaneous gratitude and grief. No parade celebrates victory. Plague leaves applause distasteful. Instead, citizens scrub walls, bury dead, reopen shutters. You help tally funeral tablets, 284 names. Each wedge of each name presses into your memory like a fingernail into wax. That evening the king orders musicians to the palace garden, but only to practice quietly, letting tentative notes wander beyond walls. The melody drifts over rooftops, unannounced gift to those who kept breathing. You sit on your own roof, knees drawn to chest, listening until stars outnumber regrets. Weeks pass, no eclipses, no fissures, no prophetic liver nodules. Sheep offered at dawn reveal only healthy organs and banaljarnalas. Futures. The granary will fill, a child will be born, the moon will shine. The Baru frowns at each tablet as though receiving blank pages. Silence unnerves everyone. Merchants long for ordinary anxieties, prices, bandits, anything more tangible than cosmic hush. In the absence of guidance, rumour fattens. One claims the gods have left for a newer, more reverented world. Another whispers they sleep beneath the western horizon, dreaming realities where humans never sprouted. You and the astronomer chart sky after sky, but stars behave impeccably. Even comets, those vagrant punctuation marks, refuse to appear. The Baru finally declares a month of Sabbath. No divinations, no sacrifices beyond basic gratitude offerings. If the gods speak, he says, let them break the silence first. Secretly you relish the respite. For the first time since apprenticeship began, dawn arrives without dread of misreading destiny. With official rituals paused, common citizens invent their own celebration. They strew streets with dyed wool scraps, too ragged for weaving, just bright enough to mimic flower carpets. Bakers give away loaves singed on one edge. Children race cracked toy boats down irrigation ditches, cheering every collision as heroic. You join a group painting faded door gods on mud brick facades, each brushstroke a minor rebellion against invisibility. A grandmother teaches you the correct tilt for Ninurta's spear. Your first attempt made him look like he was poking himself in the foot. By twilight, the city radiates patched-together joy. Stray dogs adorned with yarn tassels prance like ambassadors of silliness. The Baru watches from the temple gate, expression unreadable. When you approach, he surprises you by handing over a clay cup of watered beer. "Do you approve?" you ask. He sips, shrugs. If the gods wished to object, they had ample time. A flute squills off-key nearby. He grimaces, though they might object to that. Silence continues. You fill tablets with observations of nothing happening, pages of zeros, and yet the world persists. You begin to suspect that prophecy's power lies less in its accuracy than in the discipline it enforces, the daily act of looking, recording, caring, whether the universe answers. One cool dawn, the Baru summons you to the roof. He holds 2 clay tablets, your first liver transcript, Shaky's script from years ago, and your latest star chart, lines crisp with practice. He sets them side by side. "Tell me," he says, "what changed?" You note the obvious. Clearer handwriting, more precise math. He shakes his head. "Look again," he insists. You see it then. The shift from fear to curiosity. Early writing strains to outrun terror. Recent lines stroll, pausing to admire detail. You have learned to live with uncertainty, to respect it as teacher rather than predator. The gods may end us tomorrow, the Baru concedes. But, until then, we chronicle wonders, not just warnings. He hands you a blank tablet. Write a wonder. You hesitate. Wonders are harder than doom, but begin. Today the wind smelled of wet figs, and for a moment every flag on every roof pointed toward the same invisible horizon. He nods. That is enough prophecy for one morning. Years trickle by, marked more by harvest cycles than calamities. You rise in temple ranks, shoulders growing familiar with the ceremonial robes. Nabusuma Ishkun retires to a coastal shrine where stars meet sea. The Baru's beard greys until it matches clay dust. New apprentices arrive, nervous, sharp-eyed versions of your former self. One dawn you catch a boy fumbling liver inspection. He flinches, expecting rebuke. Instead you tell him the secret. Pretend the gods wrote this for you alone, then read it loud enough for everyone to hear. He smiles, relieved, and you recognize his gratitude as the same spark that once kept you returning to the altar, despite nightmares. You realize mentorship is also divination, reading futures curled inside younger hearts and nudging them toward light. Decades after the royal marriage you once foretold, a clay envelope arrives sealed with lapis dust. The Elamite queen, now widowed, writes in flowing Akkadian. Your omen proved true, prosperity indeed, though tempered by small rebellions, exactly as warned. We send you figs candied in honey, and a silver stylus in gratitude. The Baru reads the letter, eyes misting. All those years, he murmurs. A single sheep bought peace for 2 kingdoms. You touch the silver stylus, cool and balanced. Tools you think outlive hands. Maybe omens do too. In your 49th year of service, tablets predict a total solar eclipse. You calculate duration, shadow path, ritual requirements. The king, grandson of the copper-crowned monarch, asks if he should appoint a substitute. You advise no, the realm is stable, the gods untroubled. Better to face the shadow together. On the appointed day, the city gathers on rooftops. Drums remain silent. Instead, people hum a single low note that vibrates like ground beneath giant wings. When the moon devours the sun, darkness blossoming at noon, that note swells to a mellow roar, fear acknowledged, but held in harmony. You stand beside the Baru, now stooped but still commanding. He He grips your forearm when the corona ignites. White fire around impossible night. Tears streak his cheeks. All my life, he whispers, I wondered whether we read the gods or merely read ourselves. Today I know, both, and that is the miracle. The shadow passes. Light returns, softer, humble. Cheers ripple like wind in barley. Somewhere a baby begins to cry, surprised to discover the world again. Epilogue. Tomorrow is the god that never sleeps. The city survives, fires, floods, plagues, silences, eclipses, all folded into collective memory like layers in a storied cloak. You survive too, older now. Bones forecasting weather better than any omen. Apprentices gather when you speak, they listen not for doom but for the steady drumbeat beneath it. Live anyway. Some nights you climb the ziggurat alone. The wind plays old songs through loose bricks. The stars wink like conspirators. You whisper gratitude to whatever listens. Gods, universe, echo of your own voice. Then you open a fresh tablet. Tonight the river smelled of rain months away. You press the stylus, leave the wedge, set it aside to dry. Another fragment for future hands to discover, misinterpret, cherish. Another heartbeat carved in clay against the endless dark. And you smile, knowing it is enough.